Imagine a world where your mind has the power to shape your reality. Now believe it, because that's the world we live in. Our mental health is a vital piece of our overall well-being, intricately woven into every aspect of our lives. Our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected, each influencing and being influenced by the other. When this delicate balance is disrupted, it can lead to mental health issues like depression, anxiety, or stress disorders. But here's the good news. We have the power to reshape our mental landscape. Enter cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, a therapeutic approach that taps into the power of our minds to improve our mental health. CBT equips us with tools to identify, challenge, and alter negative or irrational thoughts and behaviors, replacing them with more positive and balanced ones. With CBT, you're not just imagining a healthier mind, you're building one. Ever found yourself stuck in a loop of negative thoughts? That's where cognitive restructuring comes in. Imagine your mind like a garden. Sometimes, harmful weeds or irrational thoughts can take root, overshadowing the beautiful blooms of positivity. Cognitive restructuring is the gardener that helps you identify and uproot these weeds, replacing them with seeds of healthier, more realistic thoughts. So, how does this work? It's a bit like playing detective with your mind. You start by identifying those thoughts that cause distress. These could be thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or I always mess up. The tricky part is that these thoughts often disguise themselves as facts, but in reality, they're just assumptions we've come to believe. Once you've identified these thoughts, the next step is to challenge them. This is where we put on our detective hats and examine the evidence. Is it true that you always mess up? Or are there instances where you've succeeded? Are you really not good enough, or are there areas where you excel? As you scrutinize these thoughts, you'll likely find that they're not as accurate as you initially believed. This realization is a powerful moment. It's like shining a light on a shadowy figure and discovering it's not as scary as it seemed in the dark. Now comes the transformative part, restructuring these thoughts. With the help of a therapist, you learn to reframe these thoughts in a more balanced, realistic way. Instead of thinking, I always mess up, you might reframe it to, sometimes I make mistakes, but I also have many successes. This reframing process is like planting new seeds in your mind garden, ones that will grow into healthy, positive thoughts. Remember, cognitive restructuring doesn't mean ignoring the negatives in life. It's about acknowledging them, questioning them, and reframing them in a way that is more balanced and in line with reality. It's about cultivating a healthier mindset, one that encourages growth rather than perpetuating self-defeating beliefs. Cognitive restructuring is like spring cleaning for your mind, making room for more positive thoughts. Sometimes the hardest part is just getting started. But what if there was a way to jumpstart your motivation? Welcome to the world of behavioral activation, a powerful technique in cognitive behavioral therapy that aims to rekindle the joys of life and invigorate your actions. Behavioral activation is all about engagement, but not just any engagement. It focuses on increasing your involvement in activities that bring you happiness, fulfillment, or a sense of accomplishment. Picture this. Imagine waking up each morning with a plan, a list of activities you genuinely look forward to. They could be anything, from painting a landscape to reading a chapter of a riveting novel, or even taking a walk in the park. The key here is to choose activities that resonate with you, that spark joy and create a sense of purpose in your life. Now you might ask, how can this help improve my mental health? Well, when you're engaged in enjoyable activities, your mind is occupied in a positive manner. You're not left with empty hours to ruminate over negative thoughts or feelings. Instead, you're actively creating positive experiences, which in turn uplifts your mood and reduces symptoms of depression. This technique is particularly helpful for individuals who struggle with low motivation or depression. By developing a routine filled with activities that you love, you're not just filling your time, you're enriching your life. You're creating a positive feedback loop where engaging in enjoyable activities leads to an improvement in mood, which then motivates you to engage in more such activities. However, it's important to understand that behavioral activation isn't about avoiding negative emotions. It's about learning to make room for positive experiences, even when life feels tough. It's about realizing that you have the power to influence your feelings through your actions. So how can you incorporate behavioral activation into your life? Start by identifying activities that you find meaningful or enjoyable. Then create a plan to incorporate these activities into your daily routine. With time, patience, and practice, you'll find yourself in a cycle of positivity and action. Behavioral activation is about lighting that spark within you, igniting a cycle of positivity and action. So go ahead, ignite that spark and see how your life transforms. Fear, it can be paralyzing. But what if you could learn to face it head on? Imagine being able to take your deepest, most daunting fears and instead of running from them, learn to confront them, to tolerate them, and ultimately, to overcome them. This is the essence of exposure therapy, a cornerstone technique in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Exposure therapy is a powerful tool in the fight against anxiety disorders, including phobias and post-traumatic stress disorder. But how does it work? Let's delve into the process. Picture a staircase, each step representing a stage of your fear. Exposure therapy doesn't ask you to leap to the top in one bound. Instead, it encourages a gradual climb, facing fears bit by bit, one step at a time. It starts with creating a fear hierarchy, a ladder of sorts, with your fears arranged from least to most distressing. The journey begins at the bottom, with the least intimidating fear. Through repeated exposure to this fear in a safe and controlled environment, you learn to sit with your anxiety, to understand it, and ultimately, to manage it. As you conquer each fear, you gain confidence, strength, and resilience, readying yourself for the next step. With each conquered fear, you're not just climbing the staircase, but building a fortress of resilience against anxiety. And what's the role of the therapist in all this? They're your guide, your coach, cheering you on from the sidelines. They help you develop relaxation techniques to use in the face of anxiety, offering a safety net of sorts as you face your fears. They're with you every step of the way, ensuring the process remains safe and manageable. Exposure therapy is more than just facing your fears. It's about reclaiming your life from the clutches of anxiety. It's about understanding that fear is just a feeling, an emotion that, like all others, can be managed and controlled. It's about learning that you are stronger than your fears, that you have the power to overcome them. Exposure therapy is about taking back control, one fear at a time. With each conquered fear, you're not just overcoming anxiety, you're reclaiming your life, your freedom, your joy. And that indeed is the power of exposure therapy. So, we've learned about cognitive restructuring, behavioral activation, and exposure therapy. But what does it all mean? Let's take a moment to piece together the puzzle that is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. CBT is all about harnessing the power of the mind to improve our mental health. It operates on the fundamental premise that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are intricately linked. By understanding these connections, we can equip ourselves with the tools to navigate the complexities of our mental landscape. First up, we have cognitive restructuring. This technique encourages us to identify and challenge negative or irrational thoughts, replacing them with more realistic and balanced ones. It's like spring cleaning for the mind, decluttering our thought patterns to make space for healthier ones. Then there's behavioral activation, a technique designed to get us moving and engaged in activities that bring us joy or a sense of achievement. It's a proactive approach, nudging us gently out of our comfort zones into a world of new experiences and positive emotions. Next, we have exposure therapy. This technique bravely takes us into the heart of our fears and anxieties, allowing us to confront them head-on in a safe and controlled environment. It's about building resilience and learning to tolerate discomfort, ultimately leading to a reduction in anxiety over time. But the beauty of CBT is in its flexibility. These techniques aren't set in stone, but rather can be adapted to suit our individual needs and preferences. You see, CBT isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. It's a journey of personal discovery and growth, tailored to empower each one of us to develop more adaptive coping strategies. The ultimate goal of CBT is not merely to alleviate symptoms, but to facilitate lasting improvements in our mental well-being. It's about empowering us to take control of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to shape our own reality. And that, my friends, is the true power of CBT. With cognitive behavioral therapy, the power to shape your reality truly lies within your mind. So, are you ready to unlock your potential?